Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to Tipp Today. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Big reaction to young Joe Hawkins speaking to us there. Well said, Joe. It says, speaking out about drugs, about time the counsellors did the same. Well, in fairness, the counsellors have done on the programme over the last few years. Somebody else saying Joe was incorrect. People do move on from the 9 to 9. I'm working with people who were in the 9 to 9 but have progressed to own front door accommodation. And somebody else being rather impolite, to say the least, saying, Fran, don't be playing the fool. We all know who's selling these drugs, and you know yourself who's doing it. Well said and well done to Joe for coming out and talking about a good man, it says here. Okay, and lots of other information coming into us about the supply of drugs in Clonmel as well. 083 311 3311. Joined now by Deputy Michael Lowry. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, Fran.
And thanks for coming on with us today. Protests took place across the country yesterday, including Nina, to highlight the ongoing concerns of parents, schools and special needs assistants following all that controversy, Michael, over the SNA allocations for school. It was a complete mess, wasn't it?
Yes, well, Fran, as everyone knows, SNAs play a critical role in our schools, and I personally know how much they mean to school communities, to parents and to the children they support. And what happened in the past 2 weeks shouldn't have happened. It was wrong. It was inexcusable. The letters of instruction removing SNAs from their position were tone deaf and insensitive. And obviously those letters caused huge anxiety, distress, and left parents and teachers bewildered. So I want to say, Fran, and I think I speak for every politician, I say this, all politicians, irrespective of what their background are fully committed to supporting children with special educational needs and allow them the opportunity to fulfil their potential. And it has to be remembered, and this is the irony of this dispute, that the number of SNAs allocated to schools nationally was increased by 45% over the past 5 years, a huge increase. So by the end of 26-27 year, there will be close to 25,000 NSAs in our mainstream classes, our special classes and the special schools. So I'm glad that government have agreed that there will be no reduction in special needs assistance this year, and also that the schools that have already been reviewed by the NCSE and allocated additional resources, that they will get them in the upcoming year. And finally, I looked at the figures, Fran, and I can say clearly that there will be more SNAs in Tipperary schools in mainstream, in special classes and in special schools in September 2026 than there is at present. So there will be an increase.
Yeah, that might be the case, but I was just reading today, Michael, I put it out on air earlier on, that there's not enough special school places planned to meet the substantially increased needs for this coming September, for example. You know, and again, that's inexcusable, isn't it?
Yes, I think that's the biggest failing that we have, that we're not creating the spaces, we're not planning ahead. Those special schools are inundated with requests for admission. In a lot of cases, admission is refused because they simply don't have the space or the capability to take them. And that is something that we have raised at government level, and that's something that I hope will be addressed. As you know, Scolangus is getting a new school in Cashel. Skull Cormac is, under daily pressure, coping extremely well in very difficult circumstances. They're the two of our principals' schools, and they need our support, and they need certainly additional funding, and they need additional accommodation.
That's for sure. Well, with your experience of holidays, maybe you could explain something to me. Those emails that went out about the relocation of the SNAs and stuff, and how was that allowed if it wasn't signed off by Cabinet? How did that actually even happen?
Well, look, the question I asked during the week, I said you have the NCSE, you have the Department of Education, you have special advisors, you have a huge amount of civil servants in place. And I, for the life of me, can't understand how anybody, first of all, could dictate that kind of a letter. Secondly, get someone to sign off on the letter, and thirdly, send it out without bringing it to the attention or approval of Cabinet, because it was a major decision to be making. To send a letter to a school and say that within a couple of months you're going to lose 5 SNAs, I mean, it just defies logic.
Well, that's for sure. People are very, very angry about it as well. You've said, Michael, that Roscrea will get a brand new Dean Maxwell. Now, there's been many false dawns around the Dean Maxwell home there, so I suppose the questions are where, when, and what about the funding?
Well, first of all, can I say that the future of Dean Maxwell, Fran, as you know, because you were in the middle of a couple of debates and disputes that we've had about it, has long been a contentious and divisive issue. And it was and has been the subject of numerous public meetings and protests. And throughout all of that, the people of Roscrea were strong and brave in their desire to protect and to save a facility which is at the heart of their community. And what I noticed over the years was that the bond between the people of Roscrea and the Dean Maxwell is absolutely extraordinary. It's exceptional. So as a result of this week's announcement by the HSE, with the approval of government, that bond will remain intact, and the future of Dean Maxwell is secure and is bright. And Roscrea, as a result of those decisions, is to get a new modern Dean Maxwell. That's something that I have fought long and hard for. I put in an enormous amount of work behind the scenes in, first of all, stopping the transfer of patients out of Dean Maxwell, and then stopping the closure of Dean Maxwell, and then working to find a long-term solution to it. I've worked with the HSE, I've worked with RCDC, I've worked with government ministers. I brought RCDC to Dublin to meet with the Taoiseach, John Lupton, Liam Shanahan, and could I mention today one person that I really miss in Roscrea when I was over this week to make this announcement was the late Steve Crofton. Yeah. Steve took the minutes at every meeting, and when fire would be around him, Steve wouldn't lift his head. He'd stay writing. He was very committed and very dedicated to the cause. And,
for sure.
And it's great. Yeah.
So, Michael, where will the new Dean Maxwell be then? Where, on what site?
Well, so the first thing we had to do here was to change the HSE policy. And after numerous meetings with the HSE agreed that the elderly care should be serviced in Roscrea itself, and they shouldn't have to transition to Nina or any other town. So once we got over that principle and got agreement on that, the next step was to say, well, what can we do? So the existing Dean Maxwell and his site was surveyed and it was appraised, and it proved to be not practical or feasible to do anything on that site. So it then moved, and I got the HSE to send out and request expressions of interest to purchase a greenfield site for a new Dean Maxwell. Arising from that, which was a public call, we got 5 people to respond who said that they had sites that were deemed suitable. The HSE asset management team assessed what was available and came to the conclusions that there was 2 sites very suitable. And then they progressed and said that one site was the best option. So there's 2 sites in play, and negotiations are ongoing and at an advanced stage with the preferred option. So that's the site, and the site is both sites actually are eminently suitable. They're adjacent to, in the middle of the town, and will make an excellent location for everyone to access. So after that, then, once we have a site, the next thing was to get it into the HSE's capital programme. I had several meetings with the HSE executive on that, and the HSE executive in the Midwest region sent a proposal to the Department of Health that it should be included. And then, of course, politics took over, and I had to ensure that we got political approval for it, and the government have approved that. So,
and how much money are we talking about there?
Well, the The estimated cost of the Dean Maxwell is 23 million. It's a new 50-bed unit. It's on a Greenfield site. It will provide long stay, short stay, respite and palliative care. And the important thing, I've met with some of the staff in Dean Maxwell, the important thing is that the existing Dean Maxwell will continue in full service in the interim, and on completion of the new project, that will be repurposed to create a modern daycare centre, which is really needed for the older people in Roscrea town and district. So from my point of view, this is a superb outcome. It's a wonderful day for Roscrea and its people. I want to thank the people of Roscrea for the support they've given to Dean Maxwell, and I want to thank the RCDC and the families care group who put a lot of pressure on and who assisted and supported in bringing this day about.
23 million we're saying for, and is that in the HSE capital programme now? Is that guaranteed?
Yes, it's in the national HSE plan. Obviously, there's procedures before you can draw down the plan. And look, Fran, every time I went to do something with Dean Maxwell, somebody came out of the woodwork and tried to block it or stop it or have negativity. We're gone beyond negativity. We have this. We now have a firm commitment from both the HSE and the government, and this plan for a new Dean Maxwell in Roscrea will happen.
And I'm just looking at the HSE info in front of me here, and their allocation for 2026 for the Dean Maxwell is just €10,000. So how does that play into this, Michael?
What Dean Maxwell have to do, what the HSE do, is there's a national capital plan, multi-billion plan. Incorporated in that, if you read the National Development Plan on the other side of that plan, you will see where a new unit for Dean Maxwell is sanctioned. You'll see that the HSE capital plan as well is sanctioned. The funds are available and will be drawn down as required. At the moment, they only needed 10,000 to pay effectively those that have assisted them with securing the site. But the money is allocated for it when it's required.
And what about Mount Carmel, Michael? Because again, this is something you and I would have discussed a lot over the years. What's the story there with the old convent?
Well, again, I suppose to give you the background to that, to refresh your mind and your listeners' mind, Mount Carmel Nursing Home was making losses which the order could not sustain. And then a local community or a management buyout was looked at, but that proved not viable. And effectively, the home was on the market for sale and could have been lost to Roscrea as a healthcare provider for the people of the town. Sister Luke and our management team made contact with me. I sat with them. We went through it. Sister Luke was very anxious that the ethos of the centre would be retained, and if at all possible, that the building would remain as a nursing home. I then contacted the HSE, and we had a huge amount of interaction between Mount Carmel management, HSE and myself. And after a lot of discussion and negotiation, a deal was done for the HSE to purchase the property. A price was agreed, and I got Department of Health approval and funding to complete the deal. Then, Fran, what happened was during the due diligence process, to everyone's great disappointment, it was discovered that what is actually a relatively new facility did not comply with fire safety regulations. And the scale of work and the cost involved in remedies was very substantial. Now, thankfully, over the past 12 months, that work has been done. It is now completed. During the course of the work, obviously, it caused great inconvenience. Each room had to be done out separately. And Marion and the staff in Dean Maxwell worked together with the contractor to minimise the disruption to the patients. And I have to say today publicly that Marion has been outstanding throughout the process. In fact, all that work wouldn't have been done without the exceptional management skills that she's shown. So the work is complete. The HSE have been in site on several occasions in the past couple of weeks. Management training to HSE and the HICWA standards, that has occurred and taken place. the 63 staff that are working in Mount Carmel, they've had meetings with the HSE HR department. They've had training and induction days. And I've met the staff on a number of occasions. They're absolutely delighted that their jobs are secure. They're transferring across to the payroll of the HSE. And obviously for them, the pay terms, the conditions, the pension entitlements, and general work practices are better than what Sister Luke and her order could afford them. So I think as well, it has to be said that the staff at Mount Carmel have been very patient and loyal to Sister Luke. And now I'm delighted that that uncertainty has lifted and they look forward to working under the new arrangement. So again, Fran, the question is, the funds are in place, the contracts are agreed, and formal handover will take place in a matter of probably 5 to 6 weeks.
Can I finally ask you about the Garda College in Templemore? Because whenever we talk about this recently, there seems to be uncertainty. What is the latest on the Garda College in terms of there possibly being a second campus and the like?
I raised this, Fran, during negotiations for government, and there's an insertion in the programme for government that Templemore Garda Training College will remain and continue to function and into the future as the primary training centre for Gardaí. And the problem that exists in Templemore is, I suppose, a case of the Department of Justice have increased the numbers of trainees, and it has raised a capacity issue. Like if you take, I inquired last week as what kind of numbers are on site in the Garda College. There's 398 staff working there. There's 420 trainees. There's 60 course participants. So you're talking about almost 1,000 people on that site in the Templemore Garda Training College. So we're looking at ways to, first of all, better use the space that's within the college. And as part of that, this week, a lease agreement has been reached with an adjacent property owner to access space for 300 cars. This area will obviously have to be secured and monitored. This will free up significant space within the training campus. We're also looking at the driving school. That has a large footprint within the college grounds, and it's in a central location. There is a property which would be ideal to accommodate the driving school, has been identified, and formal approval to start a negotiation is being sought. And if that driving school space is freed up, the idea would be that you'd have the space to build a new residential accommodation block. And ultimately, the problem in Templemore is accommodation for the trainees. The number of trainees is increasing every year. There's a commitment in the programme for government to increase them further, and we simply have to deal with the capacity issues in Templemore.
And why wouldn't they use the lands that they secured out around Clonmore there? Because I understand, is there a big manor house there as well that could be a place for accommodation?
There's a large property. It's approximately, I think there's 120 acres of arable land. There's about 95 acres of forestry. There has been a reluctance to use it on the basis of its distance from the college. But let me say to you, Fran, that first of all, the future of Templemore Garda Training College is secure. Every effort at the moment is being made. There's a lot of things happening that I can't talk about on air. But I can assure you there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes, looking at different options. The local management in Templemore have sent forward options to the Department of Justice. I met last week with Minister Jim O'Callaghan and Minister Boxer-Moran of the OPW, and a number of suggestions are being progressed at the moment. So there is a commitment there, and there is a desire to improve the circumstances, and particularly in relation to capacity and accommodation.
But those lands at Clonmore, is that not part of the discussion anymore? Is that?
It is part of the discussion, and also there's another parcel of land which is in proximity to college, is under how would I put it, under review as well.
Okay, interesting. But the idea, though, that guards might do some of the modules somewhere else isn't completely discounted, is it, at this point?
No, and I know, and I think it will happen, Fran. I think that, like what people don't realise is there's already a number of modules being conducted from the Technical Institute in Thurles, Technical University in Thurles, and also from
UL, isn't there?
Yes, from UL.
Yeah.
So that's happening already, and there may be a further expansion of that.
Right, but that won't take from the integrity of the college. Are you telling me?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In actual fact, it would allow the college, I suppose, the freedom to concentrate and focus on delivery of the trainees out of the college. I don't see that that's going to impinge because, as I said, it's already happening, and obviously other institutes have put in a request that they may be able to deliver online courses from their colleges, and that's what's under review at the moment.
Right. Quite a few people on to us to know, can you give a timeline where Dean Maxwell is concerned, Michael? Can you give anything definitive on that?
Well, as I said, we're almost complete with the negotiations in relation to the sites. There's two partners there willing to sell. The question is to negotiate the price. So there's two options. Hopefully one of those options comes through in the next 7 weeks. I think that's the timeline that has been put on it. And then the design of it will happen then. And then obviously it has to go to tender. But I would certainly see it happening. I'm not going to put a time in it, Fran, but it's going to happen. That's all I can say.
Right, but at some stage in 2026, do you think there might be shovels at the ready?
No, you couldn't, Fran. It'd be hard to get the house built in 2026 at this stage. Never mind, say, a facility of this magnitude. I would say that we'd certainly get in a position where the site will be purchased, where the design work will be complete, where tender documents will be probably ready 2026, 27, and hopefully we can get a start on it then.
All right. Thanks for your time this morning, Michael. Thank you and good morning to you. And that's Deputy Michael Lowry speaking to us this morning. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.